I define poverty as an obvious lack of essentials and no ability to provide for yourself those essentials.
So I like to think about poverty in terms of Martha Nussbaum's definition that considers capabilities. So there's 10 central capabilities to life.
We should define that by income.
If you work full-time making $7.25 an hour for 365 days, I think it's like $15,000 you'd make a year. So say for a family of 4, if they're making $30,000 a year, then they should be considered above the poverty line.
But a much more inclusive take on poverty, because it's all about a concentrated disadvantage rather than just like an economic disadvantage, which is what poverty is often thought of. And it takes into account the life situations rather than just financial situations.
Anybody living without basic human necessities.
Poverty is experienced by those who are unable to achieve a fulfilling, dignified life due to both income lowness and the inability to reach the thresholds of Nussbaum's capabilities. We believe Nussbaum's capability approach is the most effective and accurate approach to measuring poverty in America. The U.S. Census Bureau measures poverty by comparing the gross annual pre-tax cash income against a threshold that is approximately 3 times the cost of a minimum food diet in 1963. The OPM was adopted in the late 1960s and is updated annually for inflation. The threshold adjustments vary by family size, in which the family unit is defined as persons living together who are related by birth, marriage, or adoption. The OPM does not reflect the effects of key governmental policies. It does not adjust for changes in the standard of living over time. It is highly outdated. It does not take into account the variation in moderate expenses such as transportation and medical costs. It does not reflect work expenses, taxes, or in-kind benefits. It does not adjust for geographic differences. It does not take into account changes in family situations, and it does not show how far an individual is from the poverty line. The Supplemental Poverty Measure was created at the request of the National Academy of Science to create an alternate measure of poverty that went past simply income. The SPM is a much more in-depth measurement system than the OPM. The thresholds for the SPM are calculated as the 33rd percentile of expenditures on FCSU, also known as food, clothing, shelter, and utilities. That multiplied by 1.2 in order to take into account additional needs. The SPM analyzes the sum of cash income plus non-cash benefits that families can use to meet their FCSU needs. Deducted from family income are non-discretionary expenses such as taxes, work-related costs, child care costs, and out-of-pocket medical costs. A family unit is defined by the SPM as all related individuals living at the same address, any children, and any cohabitors and their children. To compare and contrast the OPM and SPM, in 2016, the OPM measured the poverty rate to be 12.7% of the U.S. population, while the SPM measured it to be 14%. The OPM is an absolute binary measurement, while the SPM is a quasi-relative binary measurement. Both, however, do not indicate where one sits in relation to the poverty line. The OPM uses an outdated budget assumption, is only income-based, and does not account for geographical differences, while the SPM factors in resources beyond income such as in-kind benefits and accounts for geographical differences as well. The The SPM and OPM are both measures that focus solely on the money-based resources of an individual or family. As you can see, the OPM has many criticisms that the SPM tried to account for, but both measures have their limitations. Poverty should be better seen in terms of capability failure than in terms of the failure to meet the basic needs of specified commodities. Trying to determine who is poor and which groups are poorer than others is a complex undertaking in which many different aspects that go beyond the economic means of an individual's life must be taken into account. A purely absolute income-based analysis of poverty can leave an individual's story half told because aspects of one's social environment and mental well-being must also be considered. Therefore, an approach based on capabilities emphasizes the disadvantages that affect the livelihood and means by which people survive and go about their daily life. Functionings represent parts of the state of a person, or in other words, the various things a person manages to do or be. Some examples include nourishment, good health, obtaining respect, social integration, or being sheltered. Capabilities are defined derivatively from functionings. Capabilities reflect the alternate combinations of functionings which allow people to choose from a range of choices. Capability failure and income inadequacy are interconnected because it is in some cases that money is required to obtain functionings for capabilities, and capabilities allow people to obtain a higher income source. When considering the measurement of poverty, Martha Nussbaum asks us to consider the question, what does a life worthy of human dignity require? She believes that at a bare minimum, an ample threshold level of 10 central capabilities is required. Her list of 10 central capabilities is as follows. Life, to be able to live to the end of a human life of a normal length. Bodily health, the ability to have good physical health throughout your life. Bodily integrity, being able to move freely and securely from place to place without being assaulted or harassed. Play, able to laugh, play, and enjoy recreational activities. Other species, being able to live within concern for and in relation to animals, plants, and the world of nature around you. Control over one's environment, being able to participate effectively in political choices that govern one's life, be able to hold property, the right to employment, etc. Affiliation, being able to live with and towards others and communicate effectively. Sense, imagination, thought, being able to use your senses, imagine, reason, and freedom of expression. Emotions, have attachments to things and people, experience different emotions through relationships with others. Practical reason, form a conception of the good and to plan one's life effectively. To understand poverty better, it is crucial to go beyond the absolute, income-based notion of poverty that is highlighted by the official poverty measure and even the supplemental poverty measure. While the SPM is better approached than the OPM, it still does not take into account a person's quality of life and his or her social conditions. Nussbaum's list of capabilities ensures all people have dignity. The capabilities approach measures a person's quality of life in which a person living in poverty means he or she is experiencing a capability deficit due to an income deficit. That is why we define poverty as a combination of income lowness and capability deficit. A person's quality of life may be low even if income is high. A person may earn high income, but if he or she converts his or her income into capabilities but still falls short of capability threshold, then he or she is in a state of poverty. Because income lowness and capabilities are interrelated, both must be taken into consideration when measuring poverty.